All right, welcome back. Doing an update about the Ford E-Transit 2022. Coming up on 2,000 miles, and I've finally learned how to customize my screen to show what I want to show. So in the top right corner is my lifetime average of miles per kilowatt hour at 2.5. Not terrible. Average speed of about 30. That explains a good mix of city and highway driving. And on the left, I do this daily now. I do my trip odometer and my trip time, so I can see how long I'm actually in the vehicle during the day. This day is coming to an end pretty shortly. Got about 20-minute ride back. So figure about 5 hours total spent in the vehicle. I have 147.4 miles this trip. Estimated range remaining of 18 miles. Bear in mind, this is the 148-inch wheelbase Ford E-Transit mid-roof, rated for 116 or 118 miles per Ford. That's a large overperformance over the advertised range. And it's to my great pleasure to say that it does even better than this usually. Today was a primarily highway drive. I maybe drove 20 miles of this range off highway. So that is to say, during the course of this week that I've been doing or tracking my trip via the odometer, I've recorded the longest so far I had was 181.3 miles from a 100% state of charge. A little bit of explanation with that as well. That was about 80 miles of 80 miles of highway driving. The remaining of that was rural driving. And I did hit 0 miles of range at 178 miles on that trip. I then drove 3 miles with 0 miles of remaining range into the buffer, which I figured would be there. I figured there'd be maybe a 5 or 10 mile buffer once the battery is listed as depleted. And sure enough, there is. So I don't know if Ford utilizes that buffer to accommodate for battery degradation over time to maintain a consistent range. But this van really does go quite far. The more and more I've been using this for my routes, but I haven't had to use the gas van at all for any routes this week. I've gone 181.3 on that long one. I had a 178 on another, 164, and then today I should end up about 160. So I've been driving a little bit further than I usually do. When I was doing range testing with my gas transit to determine if this is going to be a viable option, most of my routes are running about 110, 130, and I figured, with 116 range, I would just, run my calls, charge a little bit, and run back to the shop at the end of the day. What's really ended up happening is I run my calls, I run back to the shop, I take a coworker home, and then I go home, and no charging takes place at all. I did charge just one time earlier this week for about 10 minutes to add about 20 miles of range at a charge point station at a Hyundai dealership, which I found to be a good resource in a lot of the areas that I go to. You find a dealership that sells electric vehicles, generally speaking, they have a charge point or some sort of CCS connection that's at least 25 kilowatts, and that's good. That's really good. It's been a good resource to find out. But this van really continues to overperform. I operate this vehicle with about what I would consider a mid to light payload. So light payload classification being 0 to 1,000 pounds. I run about 500 pounds of parts and equipment on average. It can vary 300 pounds depending upon what kind of jobs I have during the day. So this thing's obviously not fully loaded, but it's not empty either. And still, even with that, I got the 181.3, and that's just wild. I think I've mentioned this before, but the European version of this, their EPA equivalent rating was 180, and that's usually a pipe dream to achieve their ratings over there. So for me to get the 181.3, that's really very surprising. I think more so than getting a good entry vehicle in the electric vehicle market, I think Ford has exceeded the mark with every aspect of this vehicle. I really couldn't have asked for more. It's exceeded my expectations. I thought I was going to have a lot more difficulty with this, but so far, so good. The day that I got the long range on it, it was 95 degrees outside, so heat doesn't seem to be a factor. I do operate in South Central Pennsylvania, so winter will be upon us at some point, and that may pose a problem, but finding the charging infrastructure is something that'll happen along the way. I use apps like ChargePoint. I think somebody I met at a McDonald's charging station told me to download PlugShare, which I have not done yet. This vehicle also comes with a Ford Blue Oval Pass, which shows you like a charging network, and it never works. The app just crashes whenever you go to select it. It's a great feature. 10 out of 10 would recommend. So there's that. It worked before I added the vehicle to the app, by the way. And now, since I've added the vehicle to the application and activated it on Ford's website, it just crashes the app every single time, so I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, that's the 2,000 mile update. I think what I'm going to do next with this, I'm going to do like a little bit more of a tour of this vehicle, go under the hood, go underneath the vehicle, show the components on the underside, where the spare tire is, where the jack is for the machine, and a couple of the other features that come with this as standard. That is all for now.